A sudden violent hailstorm struck Rome, Italy, covering part of the capital in ice and causing severe disruption to daily life. The storm, which erupted late in the afternoon, astonished both residents and tourists with the intensity transformed the eternal city into the unreal winter scene in the middle of autumn. According to Italy's Severe Protection Agency, hailstones the size of walnuts fell continuously for about 20 minutes, damaged vehicles, shattered windows and retreating through outdoor restoring a way. Emergency service prevented hundreds of rescue requests, particularly in central and northern districts like Parioli, Prati and Flaminio, where roads flooded instantly. The traffic came to complete standstill. Video posted online showed vehicles plowing through the thick layer of hail and pedestrians seek shelters on the sidewalks and subway station eaves. Local residents Giulia Conti, caught in the storm on her way home, said it was like a blizzard. I could believe this was Rome. A meteorological from the Italian Air Force Meteorological Service analyzed this extreme weather as a resulting from the unusual collisions between warm Mediterranean air and the cold front moving south from northern Europe. He noted that climate change is increasingly the frequency of such patterns. Forecaster Luca Perry stated, intense convective activity is occurring frequently, warning that storm could hit neighboring areas over the next few days. The hailstorm also caused delays at Rome Flaminio airport, with the several incoming flights temporarily diverted. City workers that began clearing clothing drain and removing debris to prevent further flooding. As more rain was forecast overnight, experts noted that this storm severe a stark reminder of Italy's vulnerability to rapidly intensify, while the patterns highlighted the growing impact of climate change to southern Europe. An unexpected violent hailstorm that struck Rome, Italy, transformed the city's historic streets into rivers of ice and a widespread of chaos. The storm, which erupted suddenly on a Monday evening, brought golf ball-sized hailstones along the fierce gusts of torrential rain for about 13 minutes. Communities and tourists were completely caught off guard. Social media flooded with the shocking videos captured hailstones wildly pelting cars, roofs, and incidents. Couple of stones created scenes more reminiscent of winter blizzard of that October night in the Mediterranean capital. The city center, Corsa and Piazza Venezia were temporarily blackened in white, with several vehicles seen standing blackened thick layer of ice. Emergency service were stretched to the limit, responded to over 500 calls in just 2 hours. There were several minor incidents due to flooded underpasses, road closures and slippery surface, confirmed Marco De Santi, spokesman for the Rome Fire Department. Dozens of fallen trees were reported, and power outage occurring in parts of Ostia and Mourning district.
Via, via, via,
Meteorologists from the Italian Air Force Meteorological Center attributed the phenomenon of supercell storm. They explain it in a result from the sudden collisions between most air from the Tyrrhenian Sea and a cold front hail masses moving south from the Central Europe. The constant created the perfect environment for the formation of giant hailstones, explained its senior meteorologist Elena Moretti. Public transportation suffered severe disruption, with the metro line E temporarily suspended due to flooding at multiple stations. Major arterial roads in the city experienced severe traffic conditions, paralyzed urban function. Authority urged residents to avoid non-essential outing, while drainage channels and the road continue to be clear. Experts warn this phenomenon is a part of concerned terrain. Climate analyst Dr. Parioli said these extreme weather events are not longer isolated occurrences; they are increasing in frequency and intensity, representing a direct sign of climate change impacting the Mediterranean basin. Amid the chaos, no fatalities were reported, though the several people sustained minor injuries from the flying debris. As a calm return, Rome was reminded once again ever is timeless, beauty cannot escape the growing fury of nature. Rome was struck by unexpected violent hailstorm, transformed ancient streets into rivers of ice. Within the minutes, the Italian capital, known for its warm autumn nights, was pelted by hailstorms the size of walnuts, created on unusual winter scenes of mid-October. According to meteorologists, the phenomenon resulted from the violent collisions between most Mediterranean air and a sudden cold front from northern Europe. These collisions swept the massive cumulonimbus clouds, brought in torrential rain and intense hail, accompanied by gusts reaching 19 km per hour. It felt like being inside an ice-filled washed machine, said the residents near Pisa, Venezia. Emergency services were overwhelmed by hundreds of calls. Firefighters rescued drivers trapped in the flooded cars, and subway station closed due to flooding. Major throughout the lack of cars and streets along the Tiber River become impossible. Rome is not structurally equipped to handle with the kids of weather, noted Luca Bianchi of the City of Civil Protection Department. Our system simply cannot cope with the sudden extreme rainfall. Hospital territory doesn't endure after slippery on frozen sidewalks.
Via la casa per fare.
Rome came to a sudden halt after a severe hailstorm swept through the city, flooding the streets, paralyzing traffic, and shocking residents with the scale of the event. In the matter of minutes, large hailstones covered squares and boulevards, transformed parts of the Italian capital into winter scenes in the middle of autumn. Meteorologists explained that the storm was caused by the collisions of the most Mediterranean air with the approaching cold front, which caused severe thunderstorms capable of producing hailstones up to 4 centimeters in diameter. The storm in both the city center of the surrounding suburbs damaged cars, broke windows, and blocked drainage systems. Public transport was severely disrupted. Buses were stuck in flooding underpasses, and trams stopped because the tracks were covered in ice. Passengers described it chaotic scenes. It was like driving balls. To had to stop and wait because it was impossible to see the road, said Marco, local taxi driver. Emergency service responded to hundreds of calls. A rescue driver stuck in rising waters to help in precedent to the injured after slipping in the sidewalks, made slippery by hail.
Questo è un grosso problema, molto grosso. Porta via il negozio qua, adesso porta via macchine e tutto.
Public transportation was paralyzed, with the parts of the subway lines A and B suspended, bases rerouted, and the flights in Campino airport delayed after runway were covered in hail. More than 13,000 residents were left without power, leaving entire neighborhoods in the dark. The economic impact is already severe. Outdoor territories across Rome historic center were destroyed, and initial estimates suggest the damage could expect 15 million. Farmers in Lazio described the storm and destination. An entire vineyard and olive groves are destroyed in a matter of minutes. Experts blame a collision between humid Mediterranean air and an intense cold front. Meteorologist Elena Rossi noted Rome is experiencing storm weather previously unthinkable. Climate change is increasing both their frequency and intensity. Resident and shaken by their silence, cafe owner Marco DeSantis weapon broken glass had the balcony said. The city was survived the Melina, but every year nature is harder. It is a weekend we cannot ignore. Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni expressed her condolences and promised immediate government support. We will not leave Sicily alone with this tragedy. The flood also caused significant economic damage. Vineyards, citrus grove, and olive farms are blackboard on Sicily economy, where flooded and agriculture groups warn of millions in losers. Businesses in the historic center of Palermo may be closed for the weeks and a half a month. The Italian Meteorological Service has linked in disaster to the Medican and Mediterranean cyclones similar to the Triton storm. Since when the climate change is exacerbating such phenomena as a warning sea contributing to heavier rains and a violent storm. Residents clearing debris are in shock. Standing outside the damaged barrier, Rosa Conti said, Sicily is used to the hardship, but this something else. We cannot fight this our own.
Oggi desio come Feregno l'altro giorno.
The small town of Albalif in province of Como was left in shock after severe hailstorm hit the area on a Monday evening, covering streets, cars and roofs with ice balls the size of walnuts in some areas tennis ball. The storm, which lasted less than half an hour, caused significant damage but struck locals with the sudden ferocity. Residents described it chaotic scenes and roads turned wild in a matter of minutes, forcing cars to stop. It was like an attack, where the hail was so strong that it broke roofs, totaled and damaged cars in the second, said Giulia Conti, a shop owner in the city center. Several houses has broken windows and emergency service received dozens of calls for help. Firefighters worked throughout the night and cleared fallen branches to secure damaged roofs, with the local farmers reported significant crops losers, especially in vineyards and orange weather were weeks away from the harvest. Agriculture Association estimated the damage of hundreds of thousands of euros. Videos posted online showed the streets Albaville resembling frozen river with a drain overflowing with the sudden rush in water and ice. Public transport were the disruption throughout the province of Como, and temporarily enclosures were put up in place in prevent accidents. Meteorologists explained the phenomenon as a result in the sharp rise in hot, humid air against the cold front moving from the northern Italy, and the collisions that can cause severe thunderstorm and hail. Experts also noted that climate change is increasing both with the frequency and severity of such events throughout the region. Local authority urged residents to check instability in their roofs and vehicles, and the mayor promised rapid assistance to those affected. Albaville was faced many storms, but this was one of the worst in recent years. We support our community in the recovery, he said. For the many residents of the province of Como, the storm was stark reminder of the unpredictability of nature, and the growing challenge is adapting to weather conditions. The Italian capital Rome has been standing after a sudden and violent hailstorm swept through the city, pelting streets, monuments, and neighborhoods with the eyes of the sky of Gauss ball. The storm struck with a little warning, turning summer structure into a dramatic clash of thunder and lightning before unleashing torrents of the rain mixed with hail. Within minutes rolled, turned it wild, resembling winter snow rather than a September evening. I felt like the sky was exploding, said Marco Bianchi, a taxi driver whose car window was shattering. I lived here all life and never seen Rome like this. Dozens of people were threatened to injure, many from flying glass and fallen debris. Hospital reported cases to shock and debris and brushes, where several children were taken with a hit injury caused by the hailstorm. Emergency service received across the city responded to collapsing shops, canopies, damaged vehicles and flooded underpasses. Tourists were cut off guard in a historic era, with doors around the shelter inside the Colosseum and St. Peter Basilica and hailstorm battered courtyard and pieces. Social media quickly filmed with the several images of the Trevi fountain surrounded by the sky, with the local described it into steam from another world. Transport was now into disarray. Rome's metro facing delay after water seeped into tunnels, with the traffic jams scattered into kilometers and the driver abandoned damaged car. Agriculture outside the city was also hit. The vineyard in Lazio suffered severe damage and the entire crew destroyed just a week before harvest, raising fears of million losers to the local farmers. Meteorologists explained the storm was fueling the unusually warm Mediterranean air classes the colder north front, creating the perfect conditions to the hail formations. Experts warning that climate change is making such extreme events more frequent even in the region accustomed to them. Storm winds with the cyclone rotation around the lowland between Basilicata and Campania when it gets up to 100 km/h in the lower Tyrrhenian Sea. Sicilian, Ionian and Adriatic straits as the result of strong winds surge along the open coast. The situation is less critical in the West Mons basins and the Upper Tyrrhenian Sea, but weather is raging in Lazio, but not only there. Strong storms surge throughout Italy and snow at the very low altitude. The sea is stormy off the coast of Ponza is the ferry connecting of the island Formia and the marker of the waves. The ship brought to the Formia left on the hour late today. By evening it was still and the road can left Ponza at 3:13 p.m. It is expected to arrive Formia around 8:45 p.m. Rome, Italy was hit by unprecedented hailstorm, surprised and catching locals by tourists of Guad. The storm brought heavy rain, lightning and hailstorm the size of a golf ball, caused damage of cars, homes and businesses. Witnesses reported hearing long bands of the hailstorm stuck roofs and windows. Many took to social media share photos and video of severe storm, with some experienced disbelief of such weather could occur in the normally sunny sea. Italy, normally bridge collapsed looks at the dew blow from the narrow fields and when green groups are now fast to swell through the mud and the water. Environmental warning in addition to human casualties, entire ecosystem have been temporarily destroyed. In the city of Noto, residents placed candles and the steps of historic cathedral in memory of the victims. Local presses helped open air masses in a flooded courtyard, calling the strength and the unity. One of the serious Lucia Manso said, "We lost our beginnings, but not each other." the most important things. Meanwhile, the Italian army remained the standby with more than 400 soldiers destroyed across the isolated to clear debris, reinforce river banks to deliver aid to remove vigilantes. The EU has also experienced its support. A team from the US Civil Protection Mechanism has been sent to coordinate with the Italian authority, increasing a livelihood of international funding to support long-term recovery. Scientists emphasize this is only a high-bridge of may become normal. Southern Europe, especially by the Mediterranean basin, is becoming increasingly vulnerable to extreme weather events and the climate change accelerators. After the storm, Sicily emergency service remained overwhelmed. Over 315 emergency calls were recorded in 24 hours, and fire crews were sent to Cerrete, Ragusa and Agrigento to clear fallen trees, restore power lines and evacuate flooded buildings. Farmers in rural area report catastrophic losses. Vineyard, olive grapes and retail and citrus orange, where other vital civil economy were flooded. This storm destroyed a 12-year war. St. Antonio Rizal, the farmer near Trapani, were in despair. The island's fragile infrastructure suffered serious damage in the southern parts of the island. Bridge in the rural roads collapsing, cutting off Smile Mountains town. In Enna, several landslides blocked all access roads, forcing helicopters to deliver supplies. Rescue teams, including the military, have been deployed to assist with the worst hit areas. Civil defenders until have set up temporary shelters in schools and community centers of displaced families, many of whom have lost everything. Environmental experts warn that such intense storms are becoming more frequent due to climate change.
Dođi ovdje unutra ajde, unutra odi, dođi ovdje, Triksi, orea. Ev geliyor, ay, Ahmet, ev geliyor. Allah yardım et, Allah yardım.
Sicily, Italy's largest island, has been hit one of the strongest storms in the recent times. One of the night of June 27, several weather warnings brought more than 180 mm of rainfall in just 20 hours, more than the region usually received in entire month. This was hit area where Palermo, Catania, Anginda and Messina were the hardest hit. Authorities confirmed that at least 3 people died as a result of the flooding electrocutions. Among the victims was a 45-year-old man from the town of Biansuaga, who was trapped in this car where sudden flooding undated in low light and presented. In Palermo, emergency service responded more than 14 calls in one night. More than 120 homes were reportedly flooded in historic districts of Calza and Bellero. In the town of Aguirre and Mount Etna, landslides to the evacuation more than 17 residents, while the rescue volunteers injured several persons. Power outage affected nearly 30,000 homes. An emergency company, eaves, sent dozens of repair crews on the island. Rain severe between Catania and Syracuse was suspended, and yet Falcon Belen Airport. 15 flights were delayed or diverted due to heavy rain, and a wind gust exceeded 19 km/h. Its depths disappeared under murky water. Rural Sicily was not spared entire. The contrast of the tempest of olive groves and vineyards were ravaged. The castles of Sicily, rich agricultural heritage, which helped to their fields, were submerged. Their livelihoods momentarily wiped out the storm war. The damage of the agriculture sector is cornerstone of the Sicily economy. Is yet to be fully equipped, but early estimates suggest a significant impact. The storm has also rekindled discussions about the climate change and the increasingly visible impact. Scientists point to rising temperature in the Mediterranean in contrast of more frequent and intense weather patterns. This storm in Sicily is not an isolated incident but horrible to changing climate in respect not geographical barriers. Amidst the chaos have been hearing displays of resilience and solidarity. Communities have together to support provided evacuation support to provide shelters to those displaced. In the shocking turn of events, Italy was thrown into chaos as a first storm wreaked havoc across the picturesque landscape of Sicily and Rome. The unrelated tempest, reminiscent of a scene of Dante's Inferno, left a trail of destruction in its wake, testing the resilience of these Italian people and the determination of republic their beloved cities. Sicily, now in the straddling Mediterranean coastal line and historic Kerm, is almost hardest hit by violent tempest. The island, unusually a sure weather, were short in the turbulent sea of fury, pouring the curse and unrelated force. Torrential wind, accompanied by gale force wind, battered the region, caused widespread flooding, triggering landscape and uprooted centuries-old trees. Coastal town in rural village in Sicily have experienced some of the worst damage. The agriculture sector, which is crucial in the island economy, have been hit hard, with the fields and cars destroyed in the rising waters. Landslides have cut off aces of several mountains region, complicating rescue efforts. The situation remains fluid, with the emergency crew working around the clock to respond to new incidents and then arise. Italy is grappling with a severe flooding after days of relentless rain, particularly affected with the northern region of the country. Torrential downpour have caused rivers to swell, burst their banks, and inundate towns and villages. The latest episode of flooding have left authorities struggling to cope with the growing crisis, with the thousands of people evacuated from their homes. The region of Emilia-Romagna, Lombardy, and Veneto have been among the hardest hit. In Emilia-Romagna, widespread damage to infrastructure have been reported, with the roads submerged, bridges washed away, and homes flooded. Several rivers, including the Po and the Agrio, have reached critical levels, forcing emergency service to respond rapidly to prevent further damage. The situation has been compounded by landslides in hilly areas, blocked roads, and insulated communities. Experts warn that such events are becoming more frequent due to climate change, especially in the southern Europe. Palermo Major Robert Lalacalla called the government assistant, say this is no longer a seasonal storm. This is a climate emergency. We need to urgent investment in infrastructure and prevention. No casualties have been confirmed, but dozens of people have been received medical attention and injured in the shock. The Italian government has promised to assess the damage and provide funds to clean up in the coming days. Sicily is beginning in lengthy cleanup. The storm is stark reminder of increasing unpredictability of nature in the face of global warming. In Messina, landslides blocked major highways, isolated several mountains villages. Farmers in Surrey reported several damage to crops with the olive groves and a vineyard underwater. One of the local farmers, Antonio Bellini, said, "We have lost half of our harvest. We haven't seen rain like this in 40 years." Temporary shelters were established in community center and church for families who were forced to leave their homes. Volunteers are working around the clock to distribute food, blankets of our necessities. The Italian government has declared a state of emergency in the several regions, mobilized rescue workers and deployed to army to aid the evacuation efforts. Civil protection authorities have urged people in the affected areas to remind cautions to need official warning to forecast in coming days. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni visited the affected areas and presented their solidarity with the victims and pledged government support to reconstruction efforts. This is a national emergency and we are working closely with the local authorities to ensure the safety of all residents, she said. Climate experts warn that such extreme weather events become more frequent due to climate change. Italy, with a varied geography, is particularly vulnerable in the affected changing weather patterns. The combination of heavy rainfall, property, maintained infrastructure, and urban explosion into flood-prone areas in exact button the impact of the recent storms. The human toll of storm is still being acid. At least 3 days have been confirmed so far, including the elder remain who drowned in flooding basement in Messina and young delivery driver who was swept away by flood waters in Catania. Dozens of people have been injured, many of them due to fallen debris in traffic incidents on the road, Middleside, Parioli or rain. Sicilian Governor Renata Citrelli visited the flooded areas on Tuesday, calling that the managed helicopters and promised long-term support. We will not abandon our people. The recovery will be swift and complete, we promised during the press conference. Local volunteers arrived the affected areas, diverted flood and helping to clear debris. Social media is now filled not only image and destructive but also of solidarity. Neighbors stretch offering shoulders and young groups organized donated drivers. Schools in several provinces remain closed to damage assessment continue. Psychologists have been sent to provide assistance to children and families affected by trauma, especially in the hardest hit community of Gela and Lixita. The Italian city of Palermo was left in shock after the severe storm swept through the Sicilian capital, bringing torrential rain, hurricane-force winds and flash floods that paralyzed the city. Within hours, streets turned into raging rivers, swept away across the trapped residents in their homes. Emergency services were inundated with a call, rescued dozens of people from flooded cars in the basement. It was like a waterfall rushing throughout the streets, said a local shopkeeper. Describe it now if the store was destroyed in minutes. Hospitals reported an influx of potent safety from the injured and hypothermia. Authorities confirmed several casualties and thousands of people were left without power as the power lines collapsed under the weight of fallen trees. The city's historic districts, usually bustling with the tourists, were usually empty as residents hid in their homes. The storm also disrupted vital infrastructure. Palermo Airport temporarily suspended flights and ferry service were halted due to wave crashed onto the coast. In rural area around the city, farmland was destroyed onto olive groves and vineyards were flooded, raising fears of significant losses to agriculture. Meteorologists said the storm was intensified by the warm water of the Mediterranean Sea, which follow unstable air masses. Conditions likely to the border effects of the climate change. Italy's Civil Protection Agency warned that extreme weather conditions are becoming the new normal and they call it to mandate investment to flood protection and the early warning system. Local authorities declared a state of emergency and the government promising to allocate funds to deal with the aftermath of the national disaster. Volunteers joined to brigade the police to clear blocked roads, but recovery expected to take weeks to even months.
Sì, non è che va, però cognome sei go!
Rome was hit by a sudden and violent hailstorm. which turned in the historic streets and Italian capital into the city rivers and caused significant disruption to normal life in the city. The storm, which hit late in the evening, blanketed the city with a hailstorm the size of walnuts, breaking windows, damaged cars, and injured dozens of residents and tourists. Within minutes, cobbled streets and famous squares were covered with a white blanket, created scenes more reminiscent of winter and autumn. Severe quickly overlapped caused flash flood that swept through the central area, including Trastevere and Prati. Cars were stuck in ice, city water, and abysses, and trams stopped while emergency service dealt with debris. Rome Flaminio airport reported delays after runway were temporarily covered in hail and lightning forces ground staff and suspended operations. Train service ended from Termini station was also severely disrupted, leaving hundreds of passengers stranded overnight. Hospitals treated dozens of people and injuries from the fallen branches slapping on the sky streets and broken glass. It was terrible, said Lucia Bianchi, a local resident. The hailstones were so long and sounding like bullets hitting the window. Video posted online showed streams of hail falling down the Spanish states and a fountain overflowing throughout the city. The storms also left a mark on agriculture, vineyard and olive groves around the Lazio suffered significant damage, with the farmers reported crops loser just weeks before harvest. For us, it is a disaster, said Marco Rossi, a farmer near Frascati. Months of work were destroyed in half an hour. Meteorologists said the storm was caused a collision between most Mediterranean air and a cold front moving south, conditions increasingly associated with a climate instability. Experts warning that the Rome, like many southern Europe cities, is becoming increasingly vulnerable to sudden extreme weather events. Meteorologists from Italy's Civil Protection Agency described the phenomenon as a supercell outbreak. While rare in southern Europe, such events are becoming more frequent. The contrast between extreme heat and a cold front from the Alps created the perfect storm, explained senior meteorologist Dr. Andrea Lombardi. This level of intense fire used to occur once every 10 years, but how it happened every year. Severe damage occurred in rural area. Farmers in poor river basin reported corn, tomato, and grape crops crushed by hail. Some farms suffered total destruction just before harvest, with the initial estimated putting damage over 100 million euros. Luigi Ferrara, a farmer in Emilia-Romagna, said it looked like a battlefield. Everything we built this season is gone. Images shared on social media showed cars buried in a hail, roads covered in knee-deep ice, and rescue workers navigating parts of white like sky slow. In Florence, heavy hail following the hail causing into Arno River to temporarily overflow, flooding low-lying areas. This is a classic Mediterranean instability event, explained Dr. Giulia Conti from Italy's National Weather Service. Heat atmosphere were loaded in energy, and when it broke, rainfall was explosive. A severe hailstorm swept across the northern Italy, battered cities from Milan to Bologna, with ice stones the size of a tennis ball and leaving a trail of destruction across the region. The storm, which broke out late on Wednesday evening, turned streets into rivers and the ice and causing chaos in that meteorologists describe it as one of the most severe hailstorms in the Italy recent history. Residents of Lombardy and Emilia-Romagna described scenes of panic and thunder rumble overhead and a huge hailstone pounded through cars and crops. It felt like the sky was fallen, said Franessa Rossi, a resident of Parma. The noise was different. We thought the window would explode. Local authority reported hundreds of emergency calls. Firefighters worked through the night and rescue stranded motorists to clear fallen trees. In Bergamo, entire neighborhoods were left without power, and strong winds and ice built up damaged power lines. Rome, Italy. A powerful and sudden hailstorm brought the Italian capital to the standstill, transforming the historic streets into frozen torrential and leaving residents in shock. Within minutes, dark clouds gathered over the eternal city, unleashed the violent downpour of ice that covered cars, monuments, and pigeons under the thick layer of white. Meteorologists describe the event of extreme collective cell, an unusual atmospheric clash between warm Mediterranean humidity and a cold Arctic front. Hailstones, some exceeded 3 centimeters in diameter, pounded rooftops and vehicles. Standing off alarm across the city, wind gusts reached nearly 100 km/h, intensified the destruction, uprooted trees and scattered debris along the Tiber River. Emergency service received over 120 calls. In 2 hours, dozens of vehicles were abandoned the submerged streets, and firefighters worked tirelessly to free people trapped in the underpass. Several metro lines and bus roads were suspended due to flooding and power outage. It looked like a scene from the disaster movie, said resident Giulia Lombardi. In a few minutes, day turned into night, and the streets became a river in the ice. Raising the alarm over significant damage to crops, vineyard and olive groves, kept the region economy were damaged, raising concerns about the shortage and price tracks. Local markets lost fresh produce, water and ice, and destroyed market stalls. Dramatic video approached the social media showing hailstone pelted down of the Colosseum with some clip centimeters of the view of matter in hour. Meteorologists warned that such severe matter, previously rare in Rome, could become common in rising sea temperatures, intensify storms in the southern Europe. A Rome cleared ice from the streets and eases the financial damage. The storm has represented the debate about the urban resilience, climate change adaptation, and the Italian capital's preparedness for the increasingly unpredictability of nature. Hospitals reported an increase in administration, while several schools closed after their roofs suffered structure damage. Rome's already overbundled infrastructure succumbed to onslaught. Metro Line A was temporarily suspended due to flooding, and thousands of homes were left without power. Insurers grabbed estimated the damage could reach tens of millions of euros, which vehicles safe ground of outdoors have been the most affected. Farmers in Lazio also suffered losses. Vegetables, fields and vineyards were hit by the pond. Agriculture Association described the event of the catastrophic blow and the higher the harvest season. Meteorologists linking the storm and wind of the most air and collided with the cold front conditions intensified by the expectation warm weather of the Mediterranean. This is a classic case of extreme weather amplified by climate change. Parts of the southern Italy are trying to recover from the torrential rain that caused devastating flood in Sicily. Flooding cities, blocked roads, and leaving thousands of people without electricity. Officials have called the disaster a national emergency. Within hours, the streets of Palermo, Catania, and Messina turned into raging rivers that swept away cars and flooded the first floor to homes and businesses. The Italian Civil Protection Agency reported that more than 115 millimeters of rain fell in less than 20 hours, an amount that usually falls over several months. Local resident Maria Russo told reporters, "The water came so fast that in a matter of minutes my streets turned into river. We didn't have time to have anything." Emergency service rescue families standing on rooftops, and firefighters worked throughout the night clearing debris and pumping water out of hospitals and schools. At least 20,000 households were left without power, and many villages remain isolated after landslides blocked acid roads. Authorities confirmed several injuries, at least 3 deaths. all thought that toll could rise under such countries. As Sicily slowly begins to dry up, the real lesson of the storm is being recovered not only in blizzards but also in dialect and the growing average in the Mediterranean Sea. One of the candle as calm sea as sunny skies is becoming of the epicenter of the climate disaster. Experts call this a turning point to the arch Southern European government is investing in the climate resilience. Coastal cities such as Palermo and Catania, densely populated, are reaching a culture heritage, particularly vulnerable to rising sea levels, increasing rainfall to heat waves. The Mediterranean Sea is warming 20% faster than the global average, said Dr. Elena Morandi, the climate researcher of University of Rome. This storm was not a fluke. This is part of the trend we are seeing more intense, more frequent, more destructive. International observers from UNESCO have experienced concerns about Sicily historical monuments, many of which were flooded or damaged during this storm. The Brockway tributaries of Noto and ancient Greek ruins are still nude, and new parts of the parts surrounding Mount Etna were affected.